Yo, what is happening, peoples? Okay, so it's Tuesday night, back with another live stream, and today's topic is what are the best training splits for Strongman? Now, this was actually inspired by at a check-in call with one of my clients today, and he had just had a really busy weekend. He owns a gym, and he was actually moving his equipment from one to another. So we kind of got on the topic of fatigue management, like how can you still make gains when you got a lot of stuff going on in your life. So I'm going to break that down and just kind of, give you some ideas. But the real answer to all of this, what you need to understand is there are many ways to achieve success with a training split, right? Like this is going to be really different depending on your schedule, your availability, your preferences, right? Like different seasons of your life if you have different stuff going on. So for Strongman, I'm going to start just by talking about a 4-day split, okay? Now, when we're doing a 4-day split, there are really two ways that we can kind of break this down, and that would be an upper, lower. I'm just going to put times 2. So that's an upper, lower, right? So, right now in my prep, I have a overhead medley, and then I also have all these different moving events, which also features max deadlift. So I'm doing, sort of a split where it's overhead pressing, deadlift, overhead pressing again, and then squats and events. So one thing that has worked really well for me, this is a concept to, kind of think in the bigger picture, is I'm running a 4-day split, but we dropped it down to 3 days a week because my fatigue was just all over the place. Actually, was having a hard time recovering from workouts. So these things can always change. I'm going to give you some other examples of what that would look like. But just to kind of give you ideas about what different splits look like, let's start with an upper lower times 2 one. The next good one would be 3 training days. So you would have like a let me change that. So what you would have is like a press day, lower dominant, press, events. Okay, so this is a style that works really well for people when they don't have regular access to a strongman gym, right? A lot of people, some of the ones that I train, we do a press lower day where sometimes we do deadlifts and squats in the same day. We'll do other press and upper back accessories, and then we do a lot of our like dynamic, moving, strongman specific events on a Saturday or Sunday where they have a little bit more time. So, as we're kind of going through all these different styles, just think about like what might work best for you and your schedule. I think that it's better to actually not really have like a strongman Saturday and to have to get to train the events throughout the week. So kind of coming back to what I was talking about earlier, I have long axle circus dumbbell. Then I do deadlifts every week because that's a core foundational movement that you should be doing kind of all the time in one variation or another. But this will be followed up with one of the events in my competition. So I could do farmers walks after this, or I could do yoke and power stairs, which is one of the events, or I could do the carry medley, which is one of my events, right? So we're always kind of cycling around these in and out. So I'm just going to make a note on here, cycle events. And that's going to go here and also just going to snake right through there, right? To just overcome fatigue management, this is a really good tactic to use in your programming, and that is to cycle events in and out. So if I was doing deadlifts every week, After that, week 1, I would do farmers. Week 2, yoke. Week 3, farmers. Week 4, yoke. Okay, but one thing I want you to think about is if you're really good with some of these movements, then you would want to bias more time on the implement that you need. Okay, so I am pretty good at yoke, so I don't need to train this all the time. But if yoke was really a disaster for me, I would probably look to work it in more frequently. I might do week 1 and 2 with a yoke, then a farmer's, week 4 yoke, but we would alternate at different intensities, right? 1 week we would push pretty heavy, and then we would have light technical work, or maybe we would just work on pickups and foot placing and turns and transitions. So it's really up to you and what you need, right? The thing is with this talk tonight is there's nothing that's really straightforward for an answer of what you should do. It's all about what's working best for your schedule. Now, one thing that we did on this 4-day split going in for my most recent competition, I'm going to raise up so I can lower back down, is it was over kind of a 4-week process. So even though I had upper, lower, right? I would do a 3-day split where Monday was upper, Wednesday lower, Friday upper, and then I would repeat. I wouldn't repeat, but I'd be going into the next week following the same split. So this is a really successful method that you can use if you have time and you're following a 4-day program. So some things like 5-3-1 or certain linear progression programs are 4-day splits. If you have the time and you can afford to get away with that, then you can just break it up over a longer period of time. This takes an 8-week program into a 12-week program. So there's nothing wrong with running that, right? But let's talk about a 3-day split, right? Really good. So really what you'd want to do is have 2 lower dominant days, but we want to focus them around squat patterns and leg movements, and then deadlift patterns and hinge type movements. So you would have a squat Monday, press dead, right? Now, one thing that's really important to think about is, since these leg dominant and hip hinge dominant movements are so taxing, or at least they're going to be if you're following a proper progression and program, then we need minimum 72 hours in between to get as much recovery as possible, right? So if you did Monday, Wednesday, Friday, by the time you're back to Monday, that would cut it just perfectly, okay? But there's other ways you can do that as well. One method, which I actually really liked a lot, is squat deadlift same day, then presses plus upper back, and then we'll just say lower accessories, but this could be movements. This could be moving events, strongman, sandbags, all sorts of things that would reflect this. The way that this would work is that you would really want to only do squats, deadlifts, maybe one accessory to compound those, like isometric back extensions are a really good back health exercise, or maybe a leg press that's a little lighter, but you allow it to stretch out your hips and low back at the bottom, so you're decompressing from some of the work that you did. But this is a possible way to achieve this. Just understand that you're not going to have maximal output on both if you do them in the same day. However, we always want to play the long game with strongman. So you're probably not going to have a squat event in strongman. You might, but you're probably going to have some sort of deadlift event. So as you would get closer to comp, what you would want to do is just decrease the intensities of your squat, take it somewhere down to, 60% just as like an activator movement. And your deadlifts, you'd want to go up to peak into the show. Or if you didn't have any of those, then you would do both of these, lighter, more dynamically. And then you could add in a strongman move that complements this lower body situation. So that could be all these things we talked about earlier. Sandbag movements like shouldering, carries, yokes, farmer's carries. If there's a sled, there's all sorts of things in there that you would complement with this. So you can throw it in. So these are kind of two ways to think about your 3-day splits. Squat, press, dead. And then a compound day. We'll call it compound day, squat and deadlift together. Presses and upper back. And then lower accessories / strongman implement training. Okay. Now, one method that works really well is, just a general push-pull. Okay. Now, there's a couple of ways we can break this down. On a 4-day, push-pull, very simple. You'd have 2 push days, 2 pull days. Okay. What do I mean by push-pull? Push is any push or squat movement, right? So this is your presses, your squats, your leg presses, bench, anything that is moving weight away from you. Your pull days are anything where you're pulling weight into you. So that typically breaks down to push days are your anterior chain, everything in the front, chest, shoulders, triceps. And then your pull days are, lower body, backside, posterior chain. So that's hamstrings, glutes, low back, upper back. Now you could break this down into a 4-day split where you would do push, pull. And then you could also do you could do a push day rather, 1 pull day, and then take it into your lower accessories for strongman, right? So this is another way you could do a really good 3-day split. I would probably actually move this first. I would do the pull day first if you were going to do a 3-day split with it, because most strongman movements are very posterior chain dominant. So again, thinking about getting recovery in for a push-pull, right? You would keep saying it that way. You would want to do a pull, push, and then your strongman day, just so you're getting ample time in between sessions where you're really cooking and frying your low back, your glutes, your hamstrings, all of that stuff, right? But the reason I'm bringing this up now is this is actually a really good method to do a 2-day split, okay? Now, this is really possible. A lot of people think, oh my gosh, I have to train 3 days a week, 4 days a week, 5 days a week. And you can, that's fine. But I would like you to think that 2 very high quality sessions can get you very far. A lot of people underestimate the value of recovery. So if you were to go into the gym and absolutely freaking cook yourself, and then you had 72 full hours to rest, recover, recuperate, and then come back for a second all-out effort, you're going to be not only working hard in those sessions, but recovering super, super hard. So at the bottom line, whatever you choose, you need to make sure that you are doing all the recovery work that you need, right? Because fatigue just builds. Now, 5-day splits, I think, don't work particularly well for strongman, but I'm going to give you some off-season examples, ideas of what you could do with a 5-day split, right? These tend to work a little bit better for a power building or bodybuilding type focus or off season. So a 5-day split, kind of my favorite way that I would lay this out would be, chest, legs, shoulders, arms, and back. Okay, so this would be a power building routine. You'd want to work, a lot of volume in all of these things. Shoulders would include some of your rear delts back there. Another way that you could go about this, right, would be a chest and tris. Let's do a different route. Chest and bis, right? Legs. Shoulders and tris. core day, ab day. So some people really do this, and then a back day. So if you're somebody that really desires to have like a 5-day workout routine, I would just invite you to detach from the concept of what you think a workout is or supposed to be, and just think about your like net improvements and involvements in what you need. So the only person I think, well, that's not true. So I've got 2 people that are on my client roster right now that have 5-day routines, and one of them is doing a kind of a general fitness type program, but the other one that's doing this for Strongman is doing an upper lower, right? Doing upper lower, and then we have a sprint day. So we have a conditioning day in the middle, followed by upper lower. So if you're somebody who's just like, real agitated, I understand that sometimes, right, like things like anxiety, like get the best of us if we sit still or we can't, get to the gym. It is a real like ass therapeutic. Think about what you can do for a conditioning workout or a recovery yoga workout, because if you've never been to a hot yoga or something that's really good to stretch you out and loosen you up, you're going to walk out of there feeling like you got a good workout. So think about those recovery modalities. If you're really desperate and you need to work in something else, you just have to be careful about overloading your nervous system. So no matter what, we want to have progressions, always linear progressions. My mind was a little scattered last week. We talked about how to layer programs and do macro cycles and microcycles, but it should never start like near your peak abilities. There's multiple reasons for that. When you're running a new program, right, like first off, it just takes time for your body to adapt and acclimate to new stimulus and new demands, right? Once your body is like acclimated to certain movement patterns and it's used to what it needs to recover from, then short story is you have the ability to hit the gas harder and recover harder. So when people just like come out the gate doing some crazy new workout program or a whole set of new movements at a real heavy level, your body is not ready to handle it. It's just not used to it. You have to introduce some level of a new baseline or new movement patterns, allow your body to get used to it, and then push, right? So this is, what we would call at the start of a program an acclimation phase, right? This could also be considered general physical preparedness. You're preparing your body to handle heavier loads. Now, this doesn't necessarily have to be with different exercises. I have very successfully in my past, I ran this exact program, right here, power building program I got from Josh Bryant at Jailhouse Strong. He's the man. But it was this program right here. I ran it for 16 weeks, but I only added very small weight jumps at a time. So what that allowed me to do was, as I was just talking about, give my body the ability to get used to the movements, develop the ranges of motion with lighter weights to move effectively. I was moving at a pace that didn't fry my joints or overtax my nervous system. And then when I was getting near the end, those last 5-6 weeks, then I could really push pretty hard and make like little ballsier jumps. But my body was used to those patterns and knew what was going on. And it was really in a rhythm and sync of the flow of these workouts. That's another thing that you need to kind of think about is, we're always in cycles as people. Like we have a circadian rhythm where our body is tied to, waking up as the sun comes down or comes up and then getting sleepy as the sun goes down. Now, depending on your schedule, you might not be synced up with that, but you probably get hungry around the same time every day. A lot of people have that like afternoon crash feeling at the same time every day. A lot of people have BMs at the same time every day. If you're not somebody that has regular periodic bowel movements, that's a problem and you need to work on that. It's not what we're going to talk about today, but it goes on a bigger scale, right? When you follow programs in the long term, you get physically and mentally into a mental mode where your body is in cycle and you can just show up and apply yourself harder. There's so many little things on the teeniest, tiniest cellular level that prove this, that your body literally starts to anticipate certain movements, right? If you've ever ran like an 8-week program and then by the time you're at like week 6, 7, 8 and you're starting to get heavy and like peak for things, a lot of people say that they start to feel the muscles that they're going to work the next day in anticipation. That happens to me a lot when I have, deadlifts coming up. It's not just because I'm thinking about it. I start to feel like my back, start to heat up and warm up a little bit because it's Tuesday night. I deadlift every Wednesday. So it just knows, hey, it's time to start getting ready. So there's all these little things that adherence to programs really does in a good way for you that a lot of people just don't think about or don't consider and value whatsoever. Now, we're going in a different route here. If you have other questions about programming, please ask, or any questions at all, please ask. But a concept that I've been thinking about a lot today, that I think about all the time, I've talked about it in a ton of these videos, is decision fatigue, okay? So we're going to go into this for a second. So what is decision fatigue? Decision fatigue is just wasting energy over having to make choices, all right? Now, we have only a limited bandwidth of things we can put our mental energy into, and put our focus into. So when we are not following a program and we're just sort of guessing, just figuring out like, oh, what do I want to do today? It's the same thing with a meal plan. Like, what am I going to eat today? If you have a training program, if you have a meal plan, if you have a routine, you get to pull out a lot of energy that was being wasted on just making decisions and fine-tune them into other things, right? So as strongman competitors and strength athletes, right, think about what you can shift your focus into. You're in rhythm. You're in routine. You can just let your body do what it do and put focus into feeling good, feeling excitement, getting those good chemicals boosting in your body and brain that will allow you to succeed, right? The easiest way to frame this and talk about this is, always bring up that stress just makes your body go into a whole series of negative chemical reactions that hinder performance. They make you get tired faster. They make you get weaker. They waste your energy. But on the other end, these high vibrational excitement, like positivity, pride, feelings, get your body in that flow state, get you feeling loose, right? So think about how you can take away, let's not say take away, that's how you can shift your energy from having to make choices into knowing exactly what you're going to do, having some certainty, and then applying that energy into the right attitude, positive mindset, this and that. This is why it's so important to, as we were talking about for the nationals prep going in, is to develop warm-up routines and visualize ahead of time like what you were going to do in that warm-up area if you didn't have access to equipment, if it was too messy and you couldn't get any touches on the frame. One of my clients that was out there said that he was not able to get any touches on the frame before the frame carry whatsoever, and he didn't. He did okay, but because we had a plan to warm up, he knew exactly what to do. He ended up doing just fine. All right. So these are just all these things you got to think about. Decision fatigue. How do you remove wasted energy from just having to choose like what the hell you're going to do, turn it into certainty, and shine with your energy put in the right places? So going back into best training splits, there is not one. There just is not one. Here's what you need on every training split, though, that will make it successful. I'm going to come all the way down to the bottom here. What do you need to succeed? You need a plan. You need progressions. You need to track your results. Guys, what gets measured gets managed. And all of the programs that I put out, especially in the clubstrongman.com programs, are all on Train Heroic, right? That gives you space to where you can put in the workouts. This is the weight that I used. So you know with certainty when you're supposed to go up a specific percentage, or you're supposed to go up whatever the protocol is, then all right, well, I did 185 last week, then I know 190 is my next progression. So plan, progressions, track. Then I'm going to say long-term mindset. And this is a really big one, but probably not in the way that you're thinking right now. So when I say long-term mindset, one thing I really want you to consider about this is, we're not just looking forward to like what's going to happen in the days, weeks, and years from here on out. I also mean when I talk about long-term mindset, thinking about all the successes that you have had up to this point right now, because you are probably a pretty strong person. You've been through tough workouts. So you need to remember that whatever situation you're in right now, if you have a different training split than you're used to, especially if you're somebody that like, man, I'm only doing 2 days right now, but I really wish I was doing 4. Guess what? You have a big history of a lot of successful movements and patterns in you that are going to allow you to succeed. You just don't lose your abilities, right? There's a lot of scientific studies that are done about how people can take a lot of time off of working out and get that muscle memory to come right back in super quick. One of the most famous examples was called the Colorado experiment. There's a bodybuilder by the name of Casey Viator who got in, I think, a motorcycle crash. He lost 60 pounds of muscle. He was in a coma, and he actually gained 80 pounds back under 6 months, right? Now, a lot of people make a lot of different claims about why that was. Like they say, oh, he was doing this specific style of training. Oh, he was doing this or that. But no, the reality is he had muscle memory. And even though he was in a coma, there was a lot of recovery things happening to his connective tissues, his nervous system. So when he was ready to get back into it, he had this long-term mindset, this long-term muscle memory in his system as well that allowed him to look at the bigger picture, take a 6 months approach, made a plan, had progressions, tracked his foods, tracked his weight, tracked everything else that was going on, and he gained an unbelievable amount of muscle. If you're interested in the full story, check out the Colorado experiment bodybuilding. Absolutely mind-blowing story. So really cool stuff. So yeah, you need a plan no matter what, so you can eliminate decision fatigue and you can put your energy where it needs to go. You need progressions in that plan. If you just do the same thing over and over and over and over and over again, nothing's going to change. You have to make small steps forward, okay? But thinking about this long-term mindset is you are unstoppable if you just constantly take one step forward at a time. The people that crash and burn out are the ones with these meteoric rises and they can't handle any of it and then they dip down, right? This happens at all levels of sports, especially strongman. You have a lot of guys who had this big, great rise. Sometimes it was due to gear and performance enhancing drugs and their bodies, their tendons, their ligaments, their nervous system just couldn't catch up. And then they were injury prone. I hate to say it, but this is sort of what happened to guys like Matthias Kieliszkowski or Alexei Novikov, or maybe at some point, Martins Licis. It takes time to mature your body to a place where it can handle all of these things long term. So when we're thinking about like where we are right now with our training split and what we need to do, like have some grace and gratitude that whatever you're doing right now is pushing you long term in the right direction. Because what phase or season you are of life right now you just need to adapt and make sure that you have a plan to continue moving forward. There will be times in your life when you're going to be able to work out 7 days a week where you have 4 awesome strength training workouts. You're doing 2 conditioning sessions, and you got a recovery session every single week. But that's not how it always works, right? Even though that's maybe like an ideal scenario for anybody, maybe that just doesn't fit. So you can't just shoehorn this into it. You can't put, square peg into a circle, right? Whatever the saying is. So that's what you should not try to do. You need to trust the process. You need to make a plan that works, create progressions, track your progress, and always double down on your recovery protocols and systems. So get your steps, get good sleep, stretch when you can, do some mobility, but you just have to know and believe that you are going to make progress pretty much whatever you choose. So a lot of options. Kind of went all over the place on this, but I am fielding questions. I'm going to hang out for another minute or two here. If you guys would like to ask me anything, fire away. That's that. But I've personally had success with 4-day splits. This is what I've done the majority of the last 2 years. I've had success with 3-day splits. I had great success, man. One of my best physical transformations was done with this chest, legs, shoulders, arms, and back. I'm going to throw one more up there, right? So a 6-day. This is a bonus. Here we go, the bonus one. 6-day. So one time I did a 6-day calisthenic block. So it was push, legs, pull times 2, right? So I would do, push-up day, leg day, pull-up day, push-up day, leg day, pull-up day. Now, this is actually a pretty important point. I can't believe I didn't get to this already. But if you want to have more workouts throughout the week or whatever, one thing you can do to significantly increase your volume, get some hypertrophy work in, get some athleticism in, is work in body weight movements. So body weight closed chain exercises do not tax your nervous system in the same way that lifting weights do open chain exercises, right? So that is one really, really good way. When we're talking about like something like this 5-day split here, where you might do upper, lower with a conditioning day or 2 in there. One of my favorite ways that I work with people on in general physical preparednent phases is to give them a lot of body weight work. So what's really interesting is, thanks, Cole. Cole says, love the mustache. What's really, really interesting, and this was something that I experienced first before I learned and understood, is bodyweight movement actually over time adapts your body to your specific biomechanical patterns. Okay, so different people have different hip structures, limb lengths, torso lengths, and all of that. But through repetition and what Pavel, the kettlebell guy, calls greasing the groove, over time, you're going to be forced to put your hands and arms where they have to go in order to perform a successful full range of motion pull-up. You're going to have to do the same for, I was doing pull-up here, but for a push-up, same for a pull-up, same for body weight squats. If you always squat, a certain pattern, let's say like these West Side guys, they put their feet super wide, and toes out. That's a very powerlifter specific style squat that is meant to move the most amount of weight and not to develop your natural squat pattern for your physiology. But doing a lot of body weight movement actually trains your body to do that. It also develops all those nice connective tissues in. So when I did my first big body weight, I actually did this for about 1.5 years. I bombed out of a powerlifting meet. So pissed, said I'm never lifting weights again. Obviously, that's not true. Here we are now. Could be that America's Strongest Man in 5 days. But some crazy things had happened. My squat pattern changed. My deadlift stance changed a little bit. My bench grip changed. And I started benching more than ever. I had a, wide bench. I thought it was pinkies on the ring, but actually as I came way in, I was starting to, understand like, from all these push-ups, when my hands are here and not all the way out there, now I can recruit my back a lot more. now I understand how to like pack my lats and move my shoulders in the right way so I can get more pop and kick out of my chest and triceps. So really cool, man. If you ever have it, I think everybody should go through a phase of this at one point in time where you only do calisthenics. I don't know if John in the Chapel is in here right now, but he is currently doing 2 days a week of a calisthenics leg routine, and he is going, I'm telling you, his athleticism and conditioning is going to be through the roof here. It already is, but in another couple of weeks, it's just going to do amazing for him. So lots of cool stuff there, man. So I, again, have had success with 4-day splits, 3-day splits, 5-day splits, 6-day splits, and everything in between. So figure out whatever works for you, make it happen, and do not sweat any sort of like, oh, I'm supposed to do a 4-day. Oh, I'm supposed to do a 5-day. Just be responsible, manage your fatigue, have a plan. Don't just guess what you're doing. Don't be stupid. Make sure you are having reasonable, sensible progressions. Track your numbers like it's your job because you care about this. You should treat it seriously. And always have the long-term mindset. Again, simultaneously looking forward to thinking about like, if I follow this program and do these progressions, here's where I end up. And also thinking about all the work that you have done up to this point that has risen you up and given you the opportunity to continue training at a high level, even if you can only do 3 days or 2 days. So I know for a fact, actually going into the Rogue Invitational this past year, 2024, Tom Evans, brutally strong, one of the strongest guys walking the planet, was actually doing a 2-day routine because he was a football coach and just did not have time to get a 3 or 4-day routine. Okay, I know that is fact. So if you think that you cannot get away with doing a 2-day split, it's good enough for one of the world's strongest men. All right, that's that. So, all right, guys, any questions, please? I would love to answer them. Any questions about anything? Programming, Strongman, Nationals. I'm on my water cut today. I've got, I don't know, like a liter left. I'm on almost 2 gallons today, so I can cut all my weight and weigh in at 80 kilos on Saturday. Good stuff. But as always, I appreciate everybody that tunes in. If you have not done so, would love a thumbs up on the video. Subscribe to the channel. Share with all your friends. Tell everybody how good my videos are. I don't care. Do whatever you want. But that's that. So, yeah, training for America's Strongest Man. That's part of the inspiration for tonight's video is, again, I was doing it was technically a 4-day split, but it was cycled over multiple weeks. So we increased our rest, decreased our frequency. So this is, again, what I have been running the past month or so. We'll do upper, lower, upper, lower, upper, lower, and then just switch, rinse and repeat. And you know what? It worked really, really well for me. So anything's possible. Chad Wedley Smith, who was a power lifter, he had a 5-day routine. I don't remember all the specifics. No, you know what? It was a 3-day routine where it was a bench squat deadlift day. And then he would take that over 10 days. So he would have almost 3 days in between everything because he was going for like 1,000-pound squat, something crazy, 800-pound deadlift, and 600, 700-pound bench. So he actually spread it out over 10 days. Chad Willie Smith, who's well known for like the Juggernaut coaching program, Juggernaut AI. He was one of the first people to kind of implement that. And that was another one. Shout out to Josh Bryant, developed that plan for him though. So 7-day hopper split. Don't know exactly that one. What is this badge? Top fan. Nice. Sean Fenley got the top fan badge in here. I love it. Thanks, bro. Still 90 seconds. I don't know the 7-day hopper split, to be honest with you. But, like, hey, anything can work. That's the whole point of this video. So, all right, 60 seconds, guys. If you got comments, questions, concerns, anything else, gonna go have my high protein, nothing else shake after this. Guys, tune in Sunday, Strongman Corporation YouTube channel at 12 Central, 1 Eastern. There's America's Strongest Man, 80 kilos, feeling good, feeling pretty strong. So ready to get after it. Here's your chance. Ask some questions. Fire away. All right. That's it. That's a wrap, guys. I appreciate you watching. Stay strong. Have a championship night.